to move the bird out of the way and keep him safe, and that's protection. So likewise, God's planning in Surah 354, it was an act of protection of the prophet Jesus to keep him safe from being tarnished or harmed.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is that God wouldn't need to use that scheme because it can lead to a perception of deception. So even if let's say God isn't actually directly deceiving, but through his action, it can lead to those who are watching or reading the text or watching the event to actually be deceived, because those people were being deceived by God's action. But then deception is, as I was saying to you, direct or indirect deception as a consequence is morally bad only if you have an option not to do it and if you're not saving a life. Now, God is omnipotent, so he'll never have to use that. He could easily just save Jesus without any type of deception. He could have just taken Jesus up without any sort of deception at all in that specific verse about Jesus. So why would he use that method, which is normally seen to be a morally bad action?
This is I'm great you brought this up. This is a point I wanted to get to, because according to Islam, Allah is responsible for one of the greatest deceptions, making people believe Jesus was crucified, creating the largest competitor to Islam, the world's largest religion. This just seems incredibly odd. Why would Allah deceive the entire world, including the disciples, to believe that Jesus really was crucified? And so why should we trust Allah when he says, no, I'll keep you safe from bewitchment? Why should we trust him on anything when he says he's the best of deceivers? When he created the greatest deception ever, which is that of Christianity, and that based on Jesus's death and resurrection.
Well, even some of the earliest sources, you could say, had doubts about the crucifixion, and so, that's something to say in regards to that, and also,
I'll definitely say the earliest sources, we have multiple attestation about the crucifixion and the disciples believing that Jesus was crucified. I would just say from the early sources that we do have. And if we're using a historical critical method, that would be just going with the Gospels. And we don't really have anything in the Gospels of there being a doubt amongst the core disciples about Jesus being crucified.
And not to mention, there are verses like when Jesus was praying, he was said, "Let this cup pass from me." And so, he was praying actually to be saved, not to be killed. And so, what the heck? What do you need to pray to be saved for? And also, Jesus' purpose was to preach absolute monotheism to the people. And let's not forget that. Let's not forget that each and every prophet, Muhammad, Jesus, and various others had to go through their own trials and tribulations. But the reason why the Jews wanted to execute him was they didn't believe him. They thought he was a flat out liar, and so they wanted to prove it to everybody. But I guess him being saved directly and being taken into heaven, and instead the person be only looking like Jesus, was an act to punish them for, I guess, their foolishness and their treachery. So
can I raise a question or an objection to what you said? You're saying Jesus' main message was about absolute monotheism.
It was.
You have to remember that Jesus' audience were Jews who would have already held to absolute monotheism. So it must have been something over and above that message. He wasn't speaking to pagans. Jesus was speaking to Jews.
I mean, so why would he be also more specifically the Pharisaic Jews?
Yes.
Well,
very strict ones we're looking at here.
Well, let's not forget that it was not just Jews who were living in that area Jesus lived. There are various other religions, I believe, existed there too. So
So I mean, what I'm trying to question is that actually I do believe that Jesus' main message was about the kingdom of God being inaugurated, and that was through his life, death, and resurrection. And so the completion of this inauguration was through his death. That's why he went to the cross, so that the kingdom will be fully inaugurated. What I'm trying to question is, yes, monotheism was part of that message. It was part of the message of the kingdom of God, but there was a message that was more to be said above that, which was also including his death and then his resurrection.
I'll let you respond, then I have a question, if that's okay.
Actually, you know what? I think I'll maybe think about that a little bit some more when I got the stream. You can go ahead and ask me a question, okay. Michael.
So, going back to the original point, I've been thinking about this. So you're saying Allah would not have allowed Muhammad to ever be bewitched or anything like that?
Well, actually, it is certainly true that God could essentially keep anyone safe, but the reason why he protected him from that was to sort of validate his status as a prophet, and I mean, if any, for example, like let's say there's a cup that was poisoned, and only like the king could neutralize the poison, then that is a sign that I'm a member of some type of authority, or like I'm his, I'm like his ambassador. Yeah, but if anybody else does, it doesn't really mean anything.
If Allah allowed Muhammad to be bewitched, do you think that'd be a problem?
I would say so, yeah. But again, the hadith does say that he was protected from that, as I showed you already.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The hadith does say that. However, there is another hadith that I remembered. Once the prophet was bewitched, so that he began to imagine that he had done a thing which, in fact, he had not done. Sahih al-Bukhari 3175. So here it says that one hadith said Allah is going to protect him from being bewitched, but here he was bewitched. So we got a problem.
So it's 3175, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got it on the screen if you want to check it out.
Yeah, I do believe I can see it there. Yeah. Yeah, and so like the effects of magic they're simply pertaining to worldly matters, and they were not related to his prophetic mission. And Islamic scholars will tell you that what he went through was a test, and it doesn't ruin his status as a prophet. It was actually a sign to demonstrate how he was patient and endurant, because all throughout Islam, you will see that the Prophet Muhammad, even in his darkest moments, he held true to God, and he stayed steadfast, and he never let his darkest moments ruin him. And in fact, he actually came up stronger because of that.
So, but let's just recap a little bit here. Let's go through what we got here. So we got a hadith saying he's going to be protected from that. We got the Quran saying he's the best of deceivers. And now we also have hadith saying that he actually was bewitched. I mean, these look like contradictions, but also serious problems. I mean, like, so what we have is he's being told, no, Allah is going to protect me from ever being bewitched. But then he is bewitched. Allah is also the best of deceivers. You kind of see the problems that we're starting to see here. Why should we trust Allah when Muhammad says he's going to be protected? He's not protected. And then Allah is saying, and I'll deceive to make sure my plans go through. These all seem like some pretty serious problems. I don't know if I could ever trust Allah based on just this alone, but I even have more problems here related to this.
Okay, and so and something else. So again, I think we already talked about this like many times over, and so I talked to you about how there's a difference between how humans lie and how it leads to moral decay and immorality. But God's planning is essentially a counter to evil, and it actually is said to protect the prophets. But again, in that Sahih Muslim hadith, it does say that my Lord has helped me against him, and is kept safe from his mischief, and how everybody experiences waswasa and intrusive thoughts every once in a while. And so these were only they were temporary trials, which in no way were meant to ruin his status as a prophet, because let's not forget that the Prophet Muhammad was only a human, and he lived a human life just like you and me, but was, I guess,
I got you. But how do you know that his prophetic message was protected? It's Islam tells you that, so it's just circular. We know that Islam is true, therefore his message has to be protected. It's just a circular. And what we're trying to say is, in Islam, there are red flags. There are indications that no, he was bewitched. He has been deceived. And in fact, in Surah 8, Allah does deceive Muhammad for his own protection, but still does deceive him.
Well, again, I think that I myself have faced these problems about Islam before, but I think you have to be able to understand them in a certain context and to, dig deep into it. Because again, I did tell you about how there's this gentleman named Louis Lionheart he's been an aggressive critic of Islam for a long time, and so he intentionally left out that my Lord has helped me against him, and I am safe from his mischief, on purpose to make it seem like it's bad. But you have to read it in full and be like, oh, okay, I get what this is saying. So this is saying that, yes, Muhammad was a human, but he might be tested every once in a while, just like you and me, but he is not capable of, I guess, of being long-term permanently ruined by by magic. And again, this was only a temporary thing in Bukhari.
I have one question about how do you know that though? Like, how do you know he's protected and you can trust his prophetic message?
Well, it's not. Well, also let's not forget that Sahih means it's authentic, and so we had to go through a long chain, I guess, of narration.
I get that, but how do you know he was protected and you can trust his message?
Well,
listen, bro, you're super nice and respectful. If you just want to say, I want to think more about that.
Yeah,
I think respect you.
Yeah, I think I'll do some more thinking on that too. And
Can I just raise one thing, which is a little bit more the meta level about the analysis. So, I'll just ask you a question about him being protected from black magic. Is that found in the Quran or just in the Hadith?
Well, since I'm not I haven't read the full Quran in depth. I'm not a hafiz, but. Yes. But also the Quran does say that you should also follow the Prophet Muhammad, and people have interpreted that as don't be a Quranist. You also have to take what was in the Hadith as his word indirectly.
Yeah, I do agree with you in that. Yeah, that's sort of the traditional position. But what I'm trying to just get at is just again, as you probably would have an attitude with a Christian who just said, I'm going to, let's say, for example, in John 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then it says later that the Word became flesh. Now, a Christian could just easily say to a Muslim, oh, look, the Bible teaches that Jesus was God. He was divine, and it's very clear. Now, a Muslim will normally say, well, are you going to trust the Gospel of John? Do you really know? Contemporary scholarship says it's anonymous. Or they'll say, oh, the Gospel of John was late. So they'll try and say that they'll put questions about the reliability of it. Now, what I'm trying to say to you now is, majority of scholarship will say the Hadith are unreliable. So if we're going to judge something, you need to judge it first by the Quran instead of the Hadith. So I'll just quote for you, for example, just from some scholarship. So just not to see that I'm just making stuff up. So for example, a very respected scholar, it's called Sean Anthony. He says, scholars must also approach this material, talking about the Hadith, with skeptical caution rather than optimistic trust. We have another person, Fred Donner, who I spoke about before. He says, only a basic skeleton of the course of the historical events from the Hadith can be accepted. We then have another, just one more I'll state here, from another important scholar called Joshua Little, who was studying at Oxford. He said the last 2 centuries of critical scholarship on the Islamic origins has exposed a legion of problems with the Islamic literary sources. They're on above all with the Hadith corpus. So the majority of scholars who actually study, who are not sort of, they don't have the Islamic lens on, they're not Muslims. They look at the Hadith and they see the Hadith actually has a myriad of contradictions and they're not a reliable text. So if you're going to sort of build this case from the Hadith, you're going to have a bit of a problem there from sort of being on quick historical sand. But then if you go with the Quran is very clear about Muhammad being the best of deceivers. And so you can't sort of counterweight that then with the Hadith, because the Hadith are generally in scholarship not taken to be reliable.
I got a question for you. Dr. Sijuwadi's got to go soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go a little bit longer. I can go a little bit longer.
Okay, sure. But you guys can keep talking then, and then we'll go to super chats. But if we do this again in 2 or 3 weeks, would you come back? Because this has been a great conversation.
I would love to.
This was really fun. I've not even talking. I'm having a blast.
Hey, Michael, I was gonna say you're not as bad as I thought you were. I would love to be on another one of your streams, and I'd be more than happy to study some more about the stuff you gave me, and even elaborate some more on my points and see how I can expand them to make them better and better sounding. And also, when are you doing a live stream next? When are you doing a next call-in?
It's the 4th. We could possibly do one in 2 weeks, perhaps. So it'd be the 18th. I can't do the following week because I'm going to be getting eye surgery, and so I'm literally going to be blind all day.
Oh man!
But
I'm going to be. I'm going to be in Purdue that day, but
he doesn't need to be here. He sucks anyway. But I could always just get another friend on to be with me to just sort of help, or Dr. Sijuwadi could come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And Michael, but would you say that you respect my right to freedom of religion and my freedom to be Muslim, I guess? Okay.
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. And and I respect your right to be Christian too. So Hey, it was really nice to finally meet you, Michael. Sending you a virtual fist bump right there, and maybe see you guys future stream.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll be. I honestly mean we'll be praying for you. Please look up some of the stuff we thought, and yeah, we'd like you to come back and keep talking with you in the future.
You guys too.
Yeah.
Good. That's always good.
Yeah. All right. You guys have a good day now.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.